So, some people tell you you need to use carbon plated shoes, and some people tell you no, you should run barefoot. Well, this video I'm going to talk about why I think both ideas aren't exactly the best opinions, and I'll share mine. I might get a bit of flack for this, so please feel free to tell me what your opinion is in the comments below. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say about this topic. But from my opinion, as someone who's weight trained done sports since I was 3, 4, weight trained since I was 18, started running 6 months ago, done martial arts for 6 years, played a lot of football, basketball growing up. This is my opinion. I actually think you need to have a mixture of both. I know, sounds crazy, right? My answer, generally speaking, is for most things in sports is it depends. And a good sports scientist, a good exercise specialist, a good physiotherapist will generally recommend that you do most things at moderation. And there is no black and white. There's actually a lot of things that are correct in sports science and for sports rehabilitation. Yes, there are a few things that you really want to avoid, and there are a few things that are very optimal that you want to do, but actually most things sit on a pretty good sit at a pretty good level in terms of how useful they are. So I do like to use tier lists, and it's very rare that something is an S plus, an S. Most things work. So most things actually sit at an A or a B. And honestly, for exercise, what matters most is whether or not you're consistent enough. So if you train consistently enough, it doesn't matter what you use, it doesn't really matter how you do it, you're probably still going to be better than most people at it. I've seen people with terrible running form who can still run way faster than most people. And sure, it can be more optimal. Sure, they can change their running economy, their technique to be better runners, but it works for them. And it's been for many years, so it's very difficult to change habits. But yes, obviously, if you want to compete at an elite level, a higher level, then you will have to correct your technique. And this is not just for running. This is for pretty much everything in sports. So if you're a basketball player, you can probably get to a decent level with terrible shooting form, but probably better to shoot well with good technique. So why is technique important? Well, obviously for running economy, and that's what I'm about to talk about. Is if you use carbon plated shoes very often, your feet muscles don't actually do as much as they should. Now, obviously there's different types of carbon plated shoes, and I'm not particularly familiar with that. Some are more stable, some are thicker, more maximalist. So the ones I use are a little heavier, they are more maximalist, but they still provide so much support, and they help you, they propel you forward, right? That's the whole point of the carbon plated shoes, and that's why you're so much faster than them, is because they propel you forward. It forces you to go mid or even forefoot. Whereas if you were to use normal running shoes, I use pretty maximalist shoes, quite thick stack. But if you're just to use ones without it, you're going to find that your feet muscles actually have to do a lot more work. And why is that really important? Well, if you don't have strong feet, that really affects everything else in your kinetic chain. And what is kinetic chain? Just simply how well you transfer force throughout your body. So where does it obviously start from? Well, the ground. And what's the closest point of contact to the ground from your body? Is your feet. And there's actually studies to show that when you're athletes with stronger feet, so usually when we talk about stronger feet, we usually refer to toe strength. Those athletes who have stronger toes actually have a better ability to change direction. And running might not be as important when it comes to change of direction, but for most other sports that you do, it does matter. Now, it still definitely affects your ability when it comes to running. And I would probably guess, I haven't actually looked into this, but I would guess that those runners who have flat feet will struggle compared to runners who have more arched feet. And that's also related to how well your toes can move and your toe strength. And that's why your feet are just so important. And even if you're not a runner and you're just watching my channel, if you're just someone who is into weight training, squats a lot or whatnot, having strong feet and toes also are really important for your grip on the floor. And that's why I constantly have to tell people, train your feet, train your feet. Now, how do you train your feet? Well, there's a couple of steps, and it's not as difficult as you think. If you're someone who's already squatting, doing lunges, deadlifts, especially in deadlift slippers or really flat shoes, you're probably on the right track already, and your toes are probably decently strong. If you're someone who jumps a lot and you play a sport which requires you to jump a lot, i.e. volleyball, basketball, you're probably gonna have pretty good toe strength. Now, here's the funny thing. I'm a 1 foot jumper, so without delving too deep into it, usually when we play volleyball, we are actually 2 feet jumpers, and basketball players will tend to either be 1 foot or 2 foot jumpers. I'm not going to get involved in this, but I would bet my bottom dollar on it that if you're a 2 foot jumper, you will have much more balanced toe strength. Whereas I jump off 1 foot, and I'm much better at jumping off 1 foot. So my left foot, my left toes are actually much stronger than my right. And I'm starting to really see why this is a problem. It's because I've had plantar fasciitis for close to 4 years now, on and off, and it's almost all on my right foot. And that's how I realized, my left foot is much stronger than my right. And I'm not just talking about feet, calves too, your soleus, right? That's really important as well, and your gastrocs. So those are just the calf muscles, and it's really important that you strengthen those too. So how do you do that? Well, if you're already doing those sports, don't worry too much about it. You're probably doing fine. But if you don't, you're going to want to start using a little more, you're going to want to start using some barefoot shoes to do your weight training. Don't go running in them though, because that's a lot of poundage. That's a lot of impact on your joints, and your joints are just not ready for it. Those who are proponents of using barefoot shoes for running are those who have already trained in them for years. So they've built up the ability to do that. And here's the thing, if your goal is to be a faster runner, I just don't see the point in running in barefoot shoes, because you're not going to be faster than them. Whereas if you run in carbon plated shoes, yes, you're going to be faster. And the whole point is, if you're going to compete in running, yeah, use carbon plated shoes because you want to be faster. It's kind of like a basketball player that doesn't use basketball shoes, just uses barefoot shoes because why? I don't even understand the concept of that. You're just nerfing yourself, right? And that makes no sense. So use carbon plated shoes. However, now, if you're someone who just wants to be healthy, wants to move more, be healthier, I would probably recommend actually using barefoot shoes. Now, I'm not an orthopedic surgeon. I'm not a physiotherapist, so I would always say speak to a medical professional, speak to your physio, speak to your podiatrist. But my best friend, he's a physiotherapist, and he does recommend using barefoot shoes as often as possible. And I don't use it as often now because I do have plantar fasciitis, so I'm a special case. But yeah, I definitely found that when I was using barefoot shoes, my toes were really strong. They felt really good. On the floor, I could grip everything, and that's really important, especially if you're an older person and an older adult, because you want to be, you want to have good toe strength. I know I only talked about it for athletes, but for older adults, maybe some of y'all are watching this, or even if you just are concerned for your parents, toe strength also really matters for balance and stability. And you're much more likely to have falls risk. We call it falls risk, or you're likelier to fall if you don't have good toe strength. So this is maybe a video for another time, and this is a separate topic. But if you're an older adult, maybe barefoot shoes are a potential thing that you should invest in. But I digress. So to be more specific, if you are a runner, I would highly recommend running in normal shoes. So you can maybe use maximalist shoes. If you're someone who prefers not to use very thick stack, then just use normal running shoes. That's totally fine. But you want to grab a pair for your easy and long runs that are not carbon plated. And then obviously, when you're doing speed work, if you're someone who's running 4 or 5 days a week and you actually want to get much faster, yeah, I would probably get a pair of carbon plated shoes because you're probably going to race in them. And it's very important to train specifically for your race. So if you are racing in carbon plated shoes, then you should train your speed work in carbon plated shoes. And then for your easy and long runs, train your feet, train your calves, train the strength in your toes, foot, legs through using shoes that aren't as supportive and aren't as propelling for your running, if that makes sense. Sorry, I know I'm talking a little fast today because I have to head to work soon. But for running, yeah, I wouldn't recommend barefoot shoes. But for health maxing, both, not a bad idea. But, sorry, not both. Go more barefoot or go less supportive. Go for things that require your feet to do more work. So Vans, Converses, really good. Generally, you want to go more barefoot when you're walking on the street, okay? That pretty much sums up my video. If it's a bit confusing, apologies, because there's so many thoughts going on in my brain and I'm about to head to work. But I hope this video helps. If you have any comments, if you have any thoughts, opinions, please feel free to put it down low and let me know what shoes you're currently wearing for walking, running, exercise, etc. But for now, I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.